That's all it took.
What is it? Sorry, guys. Dom just flipped me off. Okay. What's He did a countdown, and then one was a middle finger. What is up, everybody? Welcome to episode 41 of the LootCast. We are here 11 p.m. Eastern. Thank you so much for coming late night. We do appreciate it. We know the time change has been kind of weird for everybody. We really do appreciate you coming out. We got a lot of stuff to talk about tonight. PS5 cures insomnia. Indie Direct disappoints everyone. Well, mostly just me, as there was no sports story. Also, GameStop claims to be God's gift to the world. We got a lot of fun coming your way. We're blessed with a cast of characters, as always. We got beachfront Rax, trying not to get lost in his eyes. Rax, how are you doing tonight, buddy? Oh no, please. Oh. We got our guest this evening, Mr. VCIPZ V-Sips, looking clean as always. How you doing tonight, buddy?
Doing good, playing lots of video games during the quarantine, lots of editing, about to hit that 1,000 subscribers. We're 20 away, like we're right at the door of 1,000.
If you are not subscribed to V-Sips, smart move.
I'll just say real quick, I hated the Indie World Showcase for anyone who saw my live stream, but I love Enter the Gungeon. So once I saw Exit the Gungeon, not to spoil the live stream, I did rip off my shirt. I'm not even kidding. Exit the Gungeon got me so lit. I was like I was lit. Enter the Gungeon's so good. I like it almost as much as Golf Story. Like
we'll possibly have that clip later on in the stream. Yeah, Rax, get on that shit. Rax, go clip that.
Yeah, and then do the meme rap.
Find it.
I don't know.
Find it, clip it, get it. We're golden.
Memes. We need some more 100% memes.
I'll rip off mine.
Reenact it? Yo, that'd be hilarious if you reenacted it.
Let's everybody do it. Starting with Cynthia. No, I was kidding. Too far.
God.
Too far. I digress. Josh.
The Bush beater, man. It's turning into white trash.
Ever again.
Josh, how are you doing? You're player 2. Probably playing Animal Crossing right now, as he has purchased 3 copies of Animal Crossing, which
is a slight exaggeration.
Which is 3 more than one person needs.
Yeah, it's slight because there's 4 copies.
Yeah, I got a couple of copies. So here's the thing. I bought the digital version, right? Because I was like, you know what, I'm gonna be all digital. And I did buy it this morning digitally, which is rare for me. But I figured this is the kind of game, you're gonna be jumping into it multiple times a day probably to check on things. Mm-hmm. And I didn't want to go hunt down a cartridge every time I wanted to switch from something like playing Doom or some other cartridge-based Switch game and then going back to Animal Crossing. So I bought the digital version this morning. I was like, all right, I'll be ready to go at midnight, somewhere in the middle of or after the LootCast I can play it. And then I decided to cancel my pre-order that I had for the physical copy at GameStop. Went to GameStop and canceled my pre-order and moved that onto something else. And then in the middle of me being there, they got the call from management, and they were like, yeah, well, now we can sell Animal Crossing right now. And I was like, if I get the physical, then I can just, immediately play it and not have to wait another 5 hours, which is incredibly impulsive, right? That's a first world problem. Like, I don't want to wait 5 hours. I want this now. So I did. And I rationalized that I could do so because ultimately I would be and I hope my mom's not watching this, but I got a copy for her, and I was like, well, I can just give the open one to Mom. She won't care. She doesn't even know Animal Crossing's a thing.
God, he is such a terrible. Can we just stop there right there? He's going to give his mother an opened copy of a game.
She won't know the difference.
Like, here, Mom, I played it and I didn't like it. I guess you can have it.
No, she'll love it. She'll love it.
That doesn't change anything.
So yeah, other than Animal Crossing though, I did get the Oculus Quest this week, which again was easier to get than toilet paper, which was delightful. It's amazing. And that's the thing. Like, I thought I would try it. I'd be like, okay, this is kind of all right. It's perfect. I've had a couple of different VR headsets, and I will say this is absolutely my favorite because the Oculus Rift is amazing. If you want, just top tier graphics and everything and the best experience, but I don't like the tethered feel to it. I don't like the setup time to log into Windows, figure out the game you want to play if it's even in the Oculus library or the Steam library. Right, it's just so slow. And this thing is like it's like instant on to dive back into Beat Saber. So I can be in VR playing Beat Saber with full motion tracking in about 30 seconds. Meanwhile, the way I used to play on the PlayStation VR, it was like a 5 to 6 minute setup process to like, get the Move controllers paired if they were charged, and then let the PS4 resume and make sure the camera's tracking right, because that one could be kind of finicky. And it's just it's perfectly Goldilocks, right? It's not over the top, it's not jank, it's just right. And I love it. It's great.
It never ceases to amaze me how everyone on this cast can go off on tangents when I don't ask them a single question. But I love it.
We don't give a shit what you're talking about. So anyway,
Thank you, Rex.
I mean, I don't.
As we move on,
Let's get to the host.
Topics, right?
The hostess with
So
the
this is
mostest.
It's a podcast. I thought.
Yeah.
Rax, you thought wrong. All right, shut the fuck up.
Well, I'm out of here.
I guess it's the Jakin show, not the LootCast.
This is the
Very
Jakin
simple.
show.
yeah. Brought to you by Raid Shadow Legends. Make sure to use code.
Brought to you by,
So do all 5 of us split the 5,000? Because I think we can all use 1,000 right now.
There's 6.
Oh, 6? Oh, well,
Right,
you
right.
can split
There
that.
you go.
You'll get
2,000.
your money.
Don't count
Don't
as
you worry. All right, I've got your money coming to you. Don't worry. It's gonna be there soon.
If Raid Shadow Legends wants to hit me up, I'll take the bag. I don't care.
All right,
Oh, no,
Rax.
I take the bag
Stop
too.
right
I'd be like, I'll do it for every single video and live stream. Front and back. Beginning and end.
I'm
Absolutely.
Dollar
My
Shave
money.
Club, bro. Dollar
I'll
Shave
just
Club.
Give me
become
my
a
money.
Raid Shadow Legends channel.
Hey,
It's like-
I do it. I'll make some videos about it.
It's like, hey, did you want to learn how to time skip in Animal Crossing? Well, before we get to that, Raid Shadow Legends. Yeah, that's basically the transition infinitely.
This is the stuff of legends. Raid Shadow
Like
Legends.
when I need to chill after a long day of Raid Shadow Legends, I turn to Animal Crossing.
After a long 13-hour Raid Shadow Legends, I like to really wind down with some Animal Crossing. Anyway, we got a fun-filled show. There's no monopulse here today. I know, everybody. Pour one out for the homie. I don't know where he is. But we will be getting into news with someone that can possibly read just as well. That's Mr. Dominic. So why don't you get into the first topic of the evening, Mr. Hat?
Absolutely. And we're doing fantastic too. It's not our channel or anything, Jake. I appreciate.
No,
I've
Rax
had a great week.
Rax said he
been
didn't give a
great.
shit. So we're moving on. Rax has spoken. We all know
So-
he's the star. Look at him. He's
So
the
that
moneymaker. Fucking magnificent.
Immediately, let's jump into the news. So the PS5. I don't know if you guys are into ASMR. Sometimes
exactly what it
sometimes
was.
they say that I have moments on the channel on streams for ASMR, but 55 minutes of it from Mark Cerny yesterday of just soothing your ear area, and they really went in on what the PS5 is on a technical level that you probably did not care about. And so with that being said, so Sony on Wednesday, they revealed new details about the upcoming PlayStation 5. The next-gen video game console is set for holiday 2020, and Sony reportedly says that schedules won't be impacted.
Biceps.
Oh my
Bro.
god.
Whoa.
Are you
Turn that
are
game.
you hating? Are you writing a hate letter to your ex? What is
We
going
like
on?
your keyboard, but damn.
Listen, you bitch. All right, I'm keeping the dog. Nah.
I didn't know if you were making a
So
joke.
PS5.
Oh, that was the best moment yet.
I'm done.
We
So,
broke Rex.
anyways, I digress. So the nearly hour-long presentation, Sony revealed the PS5's architecture. It's going to be powered by a CPU and GPU are powered by AMD. They're going to have an 852 gigabyte SSD, 2 Zen 2 cores at 3.5 gigahertz. They're a little floppy over there. They have a little less floppies than Xbox at 10.28. They have 36 CUDA cores, 2.23 gigahertz. Again, I'm just going on and on, just like they did. But anyways, they gave us a lot of tech specs. So really, I think the first subject of the night is, if you guys saw it, what did you guys think of the presentation yesterday by Mr. Cerny himself and the information that they decided to divulge to us?
So in terms of this presentation was clearly made for GDC, not for the general consumer, and I think that a lot of people know that. So going into this, if anybody was under the impression that they were going to get some type of like E3 reveal, it just wasn't what that was supposed to be. I don't think that they did a very good job of explaining that ahead of time. Kind of not really realizing the type of hype and the type of people that are going to be looking to this, since it was the very first reveal. I definitely think that they should have done some sort of dumbed down version and then kept that for, industry insiders, anybody that was looking to get tech specs, people like, media. I feel like that should have been like some type of like private presentation, and then maybe they should have done something and worked on a more simplified version for the general masses. Obviously, a lot of people came out of that more confused than anything. We didn't see a price point. We didn't see a lot of things that I think a lot of people were expecting. So when it comes to the presentation, I feel like people should be a little bit understanding that more information is going to come. I know that that was like the big, oh man, we're about to finally see some stuff on the PS5, but it just, I think it left people unfulfilled of the world.
I think that's
he's
subjective.
less exciting than watching paint dry.
Yeah.
I mean, I enjoy that, but personally, I watch your streams, VC.
Hey, well, my streams actually aren't like that, actually. If they were, I wouldn't be up to 1,000 subs, but that's for a whole nother story.
Easy.
The indie world
all right.
and how I
Let's
reacted.
get this defensiveness out of here, big boys.
100%.
Let's get back at it. All right. So, but yeah, when it comes to that, I think that more information is going to come. I feel like they need to put another presentation and never shut up.
100%.
You shut the fuck up when Rax is talking.
Jesus Christ, you guys.
I always rhyme. 100%. Okay, go.
So, for the PS5 stuff.
Yeah, PS5.
So, what do you think, Dom? What's your opinion on it?
Yeah, let's hear it, Dom. Let's hear it.
I'm with you. I think that PlayStation put out to the public, come join us for a PS5 presentation. So immediately, if I am your average consumer that buys a few games and I own a PlayStation and I happen to just follow you on Twitter, I'm thinking that I'm coming in for A, to know what the heck it's going to look like, B, maybe show me a game that's not Dead Space, because I don't know if you guys knew, but that came out about a decade ago, and show me maybe somebody else besides Mark Cerny. I'm pretty sure that the mailroom guy is more hype about PlayStation 5 than Mark Cerny is. So give me Billy in mailroom, because whatever they did was really bad. And also, they with the whole faux crowd that they had, because that was like a very green screened thing. Why? Why do I need these silhouettes of fake people?
It was really weird.
Yeah, and even they got tired of paying attention to Mark Cerny after half an hour. I started seeing them kind of just like
they pulled the
Peter
Some of them were starting to move, scratch their neck, like
yeah.
They pulled the
people
Peter Pan.
Are they real? And then they're like, oh nope, they're moving. They're real.
Yeah. So I just think that this was a huge miss, because like the first, again, if I'm excited about the PlayStation, I'm less excited after watching this, and I'm going.
Agreed.
What is the PlayStation 5? They told me about SSDs, and they showed me a
3D
picture.
audio machine. They spent 15 minutes on that.
Yes,
it was interesting.
Yes. So,
it was interesting.
And I loved audio and music production and stuff, but that was a snore.
It was
absolute snore.
So the entire presentation, you have to try and like appreciate it for what it was, where it was an intense breakdown of the, of the hardware that's going to be putting out from Sony. So going into it, once I realized that it was just going to be a boring presentation with a bunch of numbers, I went and watched someone that I trust that will break down all the numbers for me, because I am not necessarily the most tech savvy person in the world. Can I work a computer? Yes. Can I break down the significant differences between the Xbox and the PlayStation? Not necessarily. So I watched a stream that kind of broke down the numbers that he was saying as he was doing it.
Yeah.
It made it less monotonous. It was a very boring stream, but at the same time, it was necessary to kind of put out there that yes, it's going to be less powerful, but at the same time, it does have its advantages over the Xbox. Am I going to be buying the PS5 over the Xbox One X on release day? No, I'm not. Just for the simple fact of I know that the PlayStation puts out the best special editions amongst all of the major companies, and I will be waiting for a special edition that I like, and I will be playing the what is it, 8th gen?
9th.
The 9th gen. I'll be playing like the big games on the Xbox One X and continue to play most of my games on my Spider-Man PS4. But the stream itself, it wasn't. It was kind of misleading with the information they put out there, but at the same time, we're gonna get to see what it looks like. We're going to get to see games for it and everything like that. But it was a step in the right direction. It's just not the step that we wanted right away. There's not going to be an E3 this year, so hopefully around that time they put out a video releasing the model and everything and what it looks like, because that's what everyone's itching for. They want to see what it looks like.
Yeah.
That's all I wanted to see at the end of that. Like, them just go, and now the reveal. Show it real quick in a 30-second teaser. That's it. Done. Wrap it up. If they did that, it would have validated the 55 minutes that I felt like was a waste of my time.
So
It was long.
With that being said, let me ask you a question, V-Sips. If you were on the marketing team at Sony and they said, hey, Mark Cerny, no matter what you do as the marketing team, he has to talk this stuff. Because this was meant for not us, but he's going to say it. What would you have done differently during the presentation, knowing that he still had to divulge this information to make it more
Honestly,
appealing?
there's only a few things. Well, one thing, I think the use of Dead Space is stupid because it's a multi-plat game. Why is that being used instead of an actual Sony product? I think if they had maybe, like, they showed usage of the console itself and how it boots things up faster than the PS4, comparing, let's say, Spider-Man on PS4 to maybe the same game but on PS5, seeing differences in a demo as he's specifically talking about the SSD and how fast it is would have been great to show. Because he could have still continued that same conversation. Not exactly.
We saw the Spider-Man load times.
Yeah,
they definitely had a video out that showed Spider-Man being loaded on a PS4, and then they showed, this was like months ago.
Yeah.
But something of that sort is what I'm saying. Even if it wasn't just Spider-Man, even if it was God of War, you know what I mean? Just a visual demo or something would have at least appeased the casuals who were able to watch this, you know what I mean?
Yeah, fair.
And then towards the end, just revealing what it looks like. Because honestly, what they had to say, what Mark Cerny had to do, I have no problem with that at all. Maybe his cadence in his voice could have been a little bit more uppity, a little more vigor. He was a little bit more laid back with how he brought the whole
Mr.
conference.
Caffeine, that's for sure.
Yeah, he definitely woke up and drank water that morning. So
And
I would say a warm glass of milk.
Or a glass of milk. He's a glass of milk kind of dude. Warm milk.
He drank some NyQuil before the presentation. Just
warm milk by the spoon out of the cup.
Even himself out. So
I don't necessarily mind the monotoneness of his voice. I just think, it was a little too much. But you're you're pretty technically savvy. With all the information that was dropped, a lot of the information about the SSD, the architecture is going to run on. As far as the I/O is that it's going to have, the bus, all of these words. Dumb it down for us. What are some of the things that we need to know about PS5?
Well, that's the thing that I was going to say. There are a few observations I have about it. One, you're absolutely right. Mark Cerny is not the most charismatic guy, but his delivery was extremely calm and articulate, and it's clear that he's impassioned about the system and its architecture and the various pieces that come together to make the PS5 possible. And I really actually rather enjoy listening to it. Like, I did find it to be calming, not quite ASMR levels, but I could listen to this dude pretty much infinitely talk. And the reason that I say that is for me, it wasn't boring. And the reason I don't think it was boring was because not only did he talk about a lot of in-depth, really technical concepts from, things like heat management, like heat sinks, read and write speed on a conventional hard drive versus SSD and how they access data differently, but he also gave a lot of context to those, which I thought was really interesting. For instance, a lot of people are like, oh, why does this PS4 patch take so long to apply? And he explained very precisely exactly why it takes so long for PS4 patches to apply, because they can't, because of the conventional hard drive that's used in it and the way it, basically seeks out the data and changes it, they can't just change the individual, chunks of data that are spread across the hard drive platter to make those changes. They got to do the whole thing, especially if that data is put on the drive sequentially. And I'm not going to keep going on that because then I will end up sounding like Mark Cerny. What I will say is, like, hearing him take the concepts that we just sort of toss around at a very high level, things like, oh, load times or things like that, and breaking them down into the reasons they're making the decisions they are, is great. And I will say, even beyond the technical, one of the things that he said that I thought was very interesting and actually very encouraging is the fact that, at the top of their priority list was to talk to developers individually, their top, I think he said, 2 or 3 dozen publishers that he was constantly in meetings with leading up to, actually architecting the PS5, to see what the developers wanted. Because ultimately, people care about great games. Great games are made by talented creators. Talented creators need the appropriate tools to make sure that they can, have their vision realized. And the other part of that isn't just that they need the tools to realize that vision, but that they really tried to reduce the ramp up time to get familiar with that tool set, to make sure that it was something that was an improvement over the PlayStation 4, right?
Yeah.
Back in the PS1 days, the way he explained it, would take people about a month or two to ramp up and really understand how the tools for that architecture works in the development environment. And then it got more complicated as time went on. It really, I think, kind of plateaued at the PlayStation 3, where he was thinking it was taking people a few months to get familiar with it. And that's the whole reason too that they were struggling with backward compatibility compared to Microsoft. Microsoft had a more sort of standardized, like, x86 approach to their architecture and have kind of kept that since the original Xbox. PlayStation went for an incredibly powerful the cell processor used in the PlayStation 3, I think, had 7 core CPU, I think, which was really powerful.
Yeah,
but
right.
Also, to his point in this presentation, it was very hard for developers to kind of come to grips with, get familiarized with, and really tap into all the power it had. Now, 3 or 4 years into its life cycle, we saw some amazing things come to fruition precisely because they had the ability to kind of get used to all that. But seeing him sort of contextualize everything, like why load times take as much as they did, why SSD was so important to games moving forward, particularly when he brought up examples I hadn't even considered. Things like, right now, if you turn around in an elevator, you turn around in a particular scene in a game, you will see texture pop in, even in some of the AAA games, as it tries to load. But thanks to SSD, that stuff can load before your character even turns around. So we're going to see this weirdly just incredible increase in quality and responsiveness that, right now we're kind of taking for granted because it's all conceptual, it's all on paper, and we haven't seen it up close yet. But when you see it in action, I think it's going to be a real game changer. So I think was my favorite part of the presentation. Now, was it ideal for the mass public that was probably expecting? Because I mean, look at Microsoft, man. When they did that unveiling at the Game Awards of, like, the first footage of the the Xbox Series X with, like, Hellblade, and they just sort of showed, like, a quick kind of, like, what's it called? Just like a sizzle reel, I guess, of different games. That's the kind of thing that speaks to most people, because it's like, oh, I can see it. I can see these graphics are amazing. This was not that. This was an in-depth technical analysis of all of the major parts of the PlayStation 5 architecture, and it was only going to speak really to hardcore engineering types, or to a lesser degree, people who had some understanding of it. And one of the other things that I'm sorry.
And developers.
Right, and developers.
People that, they wanted the developers to know what kind of stuff that they're going to be working with in terms of, I like how they went into detail with their 3D audio and stuff like that. I am concerned how that's going to work with some devices, because I don't think a lot of people have adapted to really caring about something like that so far.
Yeah.
Right.
More people focus on, like, their picture quality of their TV more so that they think about, like, things like haptic feedback in their headphones and 3D audio and stuff like that.
Right.
Especially from the front line of where, I'm selling headphones and stuff on a daily basis at the game store. A lot of people don't really even ask these questions. A lot of them just pick whatever cheap stuff they can get and get out. You know what I mean?
Right. And the only thing that concerns me is I'm sure that they're going to clean this up, but and I hate to keep going back to this example. I do it all the time, but for a long time, the Windows PC industry would fight on specs, right? They'd be like, "Oh, our laptop has more RAM, or it has a stronger processor." Apple, on the other hand, never really spoke about its specs. Like you could find that information, do a deeper dive on their website, but their marketing, their message was always the same. It wasn't so powerful. It was like, "Hey, this is the experience. This is how it makes you feel. This is how the technology makes your life better. It's simple. It's approachable. It's an appliance." If this was the path they stayed on to, for their entire marketing strategy for the PS5, I'd be concerned. But it's a one-off. They were trying to do it for the GDC, that got canceled, but they didn't want to waste all the information they had. So anybody who complains like, oh well, they talk a big game, but do they have the hardware to back it up? He just droned on for about an hour about it. So yeah, they totally do. But that's I think it's what most people want to listen to.
Well, I think that Microsoft is pulling the same stuff that you just mentioned. They're advertising the most powerful console in the world, Xbox Series X.
Right.
When in reality, I mean, the difference in terms of pure power is almost
negligible.
Yeah, I mean, it's so minuscule that what are we running on now? What is the PS4 Pro on? Like 1.8 teraflops or something like that? 1.4?
No, I thought it was like 10.8 to Microsoft's 12 or 14.
No, the Xbox 4 or the PS4 Pro.
Oh, the current gen. I'm sorry.
Right now, PS4 Pro is at 4.2 and the Xbox One X is at 6.
See, can you imagine? Like, it's going to be twice as powerful as the Xbox Series X, or the Xbox One X is going to be half as powerful as the Series X. If you look at them, like, if the normal person is not going to be able to tell the difference between when you look at them. What everyone's going to be able to tell is the load times. How fast does it take for a load? How fast does a game do, like, textures pop in or anything like that? And in terms of, like, SSD, what was it, gigabytes per second or something like that? The PS5 has pretty good specs in that department, doesn't it?
Yeah. So if we look at the PS5, that one is coming in at a 125 gigabyte SSD. With 5.5 gigabytes of raw output and then 8.9 compressed. So basically, if they were to provide a texture, it would pass that information at 5.5 gigs. But the moment the developer shrinks it down, to try to get it to fit on an Ultra Blu-ray, whatever, it could pass it at 8.9 gigabytes a second, which is stupid crazy. Xbox Series X is a 1 terabyte SSD, passes it at 2.4 raw and 4.8 compressed. So basically, the Xbox Series X is about half the speed in comparison to the PS5.
Yeah, and the other thing that I thought was interesting that he mentioned, and I think that's something a lot of people take into account, is a lot of people are sort of looking at teraflops as this raw indicator of performance when they shouldn't necessarily be looking at that. And what it kind of reminds me of is like when we used to be in like the bit wars, right? Like, oh, it's an 8-bit system, it's a 16-bit system. And then for an example, if you remember, the Jaguar touted being a 128-bit system, but I would not call that one of the most memorable consoles of all time by any stretch of the imagination. And by same measure here, like the specs between both systems are very similar. I think somebody had mentioned earlier at a high level that Sony had prioritized SSD while Microsoft had prioritized performance for CPU, GPU, and ultimately these systems, to me, even though on paper the Series X is going to have a slight edge, I think we're going to get very comparable experiences from both of them.
So I want to raise a point there, because right there, so yes and no. So I think here's the thing. Right now in today's climate, the Xbox One X and the PS4 Pro they're on very different they have different specs and different hardware and different internals, and that's what differentiates them. These two systems are both being built on basically the same exact architecture of RDNA 2. So they're basically the equivalent of a 2080 and a 2080 Ti. Now, is it negligible? Yes, but one person is going to be able to get 4K 60 and one person is going to be able to get 1440 60. But if you try to push it to 4K 60, can it do it? Maybe, depending on the game. But what PS5 is going to have is when you load in, Mark Cerny is trying to basically eliminate load time. So you're going to log into the next Skyrim, next Elder Scrolls, and when you go do something, it's going to take a second or a second and a half. And on Xbox One X, it'll take 13 seconds or 10 seconds, right? Because of that speed difference. But I still think because, again, they're basically the same graphics card, just essentially different, teraflops, whatever it is. I think that the Xbox One X will still have an edge as far as just pure graphics. But I think when it comes down to the experience, like you were saying, I think that the PS5 will be snappier. That's kind of where I'm going down. Again, we don't know anything until we start seeing games. But that's kind of what I have a feeling of is Xbox, the Series X will be able to push out something that looks better, but it'll run better on the other side because of what they decided to kind of focus on.
Right. Yeah, they may not have like raw texture detail, but the speed's going to be there.
Yeah.
Speed's going to be like snappy, real quick.
Right.
And developers aren't going to be taking full advantage of all these numbers anyway for a couple of years at least. I mean, we won't see the peak of what the Xbox Series X and the PS5 can do for, at least 2 or 3 years into its cycle.
Yeah, and then it may get a mid-generational refresh.
So
Possible.
that is one of the concerning things right there, because I think a lot of people were banking on being able to play their entire PS4 libraries when going into the PS5, given the fact that we probably won't see a big I mean, just based off of what we know at this point in time, maybe there is going to be some sort of big reveal closer to the launch. We lost somebody. Who was that?
VC.
V-Sips.
So I mean, once we get closer to the launch, maybe we'll see a bigger list of games that are going to be coming out next to it. But I think at this point in time, it's just where all we have right now is specs to argue about. You know what I mean? Like, and it's we want to talk about these topics so bad is that I feel like we're just kind of like, oh, okay, well, these specs. Like at the end of the day, my Xbox One X, it's more powerful than my PS4, but it's not stopping me from buying my games on PS4 because that's where my friends are. That's where I just feel like the user interface is just more friendly to me. I just kind of still find myself having issues with my Xbox One in terms of the service. It's just not an overall good package for me for the experience that I expect from a gaming console. I'd much rather play something on my PC before I play it on my Xbox One, because if it's coming down to raw power, my PC is more powerful than my Xbox One. So, I mean, at the end of the day, I want to hear about games. I want to hear about, it's great that we're getting load times almost virtually eliminated or whatever.
Yeah.
Installation times, as long as installation times are better, load times are better, and we're getting a better experience, I'm excited to see what comes out of both of these consoles. But at the end of the day, I want to know what games I'm going to be playing on. I want to know what other features are going to be in these things, because when it came down to talking about the backwards compatibility, I think a lot of people got really salty about that because,
well, here, Rax, hold that thought 1 second, because you're about to hit the exact article we're going to talk about real quick, and then you can elaborate.
Disrespecting me? No,
then you can elaborate more. So,
absolutely,
transition was seamless.
Perfect transition. So let's touch on this. This came out in a Kotaku article today. They put out here backwards compatibility won't arrive all at once on PlayStation 5. PlayStation 5 will be backwards compatible with the PlayStation 4. But Sony said today to expect it would be a gradual rollout that needs to be tested on a per-game basis. They said, and I quote, "We recently took a look at the top 100 PS4 titles as ranked by playtime, and we're expecting almost all of them to be playable at launch on PS5. Sony executive Hideki Nishino wrote in a post on the PlayStation blog today, and yes, I did magnificently pronounce his name, with more than 4,000 games published on PS4, we will continue the testing process and expand backwards compatibility coverage over time. So there's 4,000, but you can expect 100 on launch day. All right, Rex, back to you.
All right, so right off the bat, if you went to a wall at GameStop right now and you only had 100 games to choose from, I'm going to go ahead and say this right now. Like, I have over, all right, just go into my store and I look at my PlayStation 4 section, okay? I have well over 350 different titles on the PS4 on the wall. Okay.
Yeah.
When I go to that wall, I go, man, there's really not much I want to play from this wall. But when I go into the digital store, there is thousands of things to choose from. But now when I go to that wall, the point that I'm trying to make is that if you only have 100 titles to choose from, chances are a lot of those games that you're going to be probably looking to play, and if it's not part of the popular
100
list, you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Top 100.
Then what the hell? You know what I mean? At that point, you're kind of still being left in the, in the gutter over here, I guess. I mean, you know what I mean? Like what I don't know how else to put it, but and I'll also kind of equate it to Xbox's backwards compatibility rollout. So how long has the Xbox One been out for now? You know what I mean?
2012, 2013.
Okay. So how many original Xbox games can you play in your Xbox One? Only
A
a
lot.
handful. Like a lot. What the hell?
Original
are you talking,
Xbox?
bro?
A
Or
lot
even, like,
compared to how
original.
many PS1 games you could play on PS5.
But I can play all of my PS1 games on a PS3.
Yeah, but PS3's old.
Yeah, but this
old
is what I'm talking
architecture.
about.
This
So
is
let
new
me
architecture.
finish my point. So the whole thing is like, so when it comes to the rolling out of backwards compatibility, that usually it usually includes having to go get these licenses and renewing them and being able to be resold or extending these things, because a lot of the times when you see these digital games get pulled off, it's because of licenses being transferred or rights being stuck in the dark where you have to go figure out stuff behind closed doors. When it comes to these
company doesn't exist
rollouts,
anymore.
it could be months before we see all this stuff. And like, if we only have, say for example, and I'm getting back to my point about the launch titles and how important that's going to be. If you don't have a killer selection of launch titles, okay, let's go back to the Xbox One X, for example. I mean, the Xbox One. We had launch titles. We had Dead Rising 3. We had Rise, Son of Rome. We had Forza, and a handful of games, right? I felt like there was like, I felt like for months I'm sitting here going, man, I wish I had something else to play. Like I went through these games so quickly. So, if Xbox comes out here and you've got the entire Xbox One catalog that you can play in your Xbox Series X, I don't know if that's true. I haven't dived into that. But that could be a big factor. And I'm just saying, if they do that, which I should definitely look into further. But when it comes to the launch of this thing, it's going to be very important, and you need to have a reason to want to go out and buy it immediately. You know what I mean? Like, that's going to be the thing that is going to get people to go out and buy these things immediately, is if something is exclusive to the console, because at the end of the day, everybody's going to have the same argument. It all boils down to exclusives. Like I was mentioning earlier, yeah, I love my Xbox One X, but I rarely turn that damn thing on unless it's a game that I have to turn that thing on for.
Yeah, I think I would completely neglect or negate the fact that I can't put Persona 5 in my PS5 if they come out and say, day one, you're going to get this Sony exclusive game that you can't get anywhere that's fire, because the launch of PS4 was pretty poo-poo. They didn't have any exclusives for about a year. You know what I mean? They didn't have anything to play, because all I played that first year was like FIFA, basically a bunch of garbage I could have played on my PS3. I played FIFA, Call of Duty, what
all
other
the third-party stuff.
Yeah, at launch, I'm telling you right now, at launch, I was literally always on my Xbox because I felt like I had more. But as time went on,
that changed.
I found myself playing the PS4 more. So
Same.
The launch of these things is going to be strange in general. If we don't hear about games or some sort of plan, but obviously with all of the stuff going on with, the outbreak, things getting canceled, I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see delays.
Yeah.
Hopefully we get them early. Like
don't talk about that. Delays. That's what I'm afraid of. Like all these games that got,
it's a real possibility right now.
All the games that got announced at the last Direct and everything like that, like Bravely Second, Xenoblade, and all these games.
Yeah.
I'm sitting here wondering, Like, what's the possibility that there's not having a direct because they don't know what date any of these games are going to come out on. Specifically, like if you think about Outer Worlds, they had to push back their release date indefinitely. I mean, they don't know when that game's going to come out, and they did it prematurely. They did it before really the shit hit the fan. So it's a real, this whatever is going on in the world is really affecting the economy and the video game industry, and it's a little bit scary that who knows if we're gonna get next gen consoles this holiday. You never know.
Who knows if video games are going to be a thing in a month? Yeah. Not to be extra morbid, but
we'll still have Animal Crossing. Thank you, Jesus.
So let me ask the panel a question. With everything we know so far, because both of the companies have touted, and we'll talk about Xbox here in a second, but with the PlayStation 5, everything you know so far, what you could absorb from it, what do you think is the price point for this machine?
$5.
Yeah, I'm guessing $499 is going to be the
for the PlayStation.
Yeah, for the.
I think both of them are going to come in similarly.
I think they're going to do 400. They're going to do the 400, and Xbox is going to be 500.
No,
can Sony afford that much of a loss?
I think Sony's going to risk it solely because they lost some stocks, I believe, after yesterday's presentation. Their stock went down. So
here's the problem, though, that if there is more than one edition of the Xbox.
Well, that's not all true yet. Nothing's confirmed yet if that's happening the day that it's supposed to release yet, though.
I said if there is.
Big if.
And you're looking at
Shaquille O'Neal sized if.
And if you're looking at a console that is, so you've got the big boy, the Xbox Series X, and you got a smaller one. If it's somewhat comparable to the PS5, and it's cheaper, and then you've got the big boy that's a little bit more expensive, but it's to the general public, it's the most powerful console on the planet. Where does that put PlayStation? You know what I mean? They're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place.
I mean, if they come out at $399, like they come out big dick swinging with $399, like that's it. That's all.
I mean,
people would pick that up over the Xbox Series X just off the price.
I highly doubt.
I don't.
But
in
these consoles, based on the what was that, Cynthia?
I was gonna say, in a perfect world, that's what we want it to be. But I mean, I'm keeping my prediction that both consoles are gonna be at $499.
I think that it's going to be even higher. Because if you look at all right, so just are we specifically talking about Xbox or are we talking about PlayStation 4, right? I mean,
PlayStation
PS5
right now. PlayStation
okay,
for
just
the
PS5.
moment.
All right, so based off of just the technology of the SSDs.
Yeah.
The whole thing with that, those things aren't cheap. I think the fastest SSD right now you can get outputs 3.5 gigs per second, or something along those lines. And with PS5, I heard that was just sending 5 gigs of data at once.
Mm-hmm.
That's more. PCs aren't doing that right now. You know what I mean? And we're spending big bucks on PCs. You know what I mean? Like graphics cards aren't cheap. If you go get a 2070, it's not cheap. You know what I mean? Like
aren't cheap.
No, exactly. If you just think about those two pieces alone, you know what I mean? You're at a pretty hefty price tag right there. We haven't even taken into consideration how much the cooling system is going to be, how much the casing is going to cost. All of this stuff is I would be surprised if they make any money off of any consoles at the beginning of this.
No way.
Yeah, it would blow my mind.
Mark Cerny,
they're already for the games. Not to cut you off, Tom. The games are supposed to be $80-$90 right now, guys. These games aren't supposed to be $60. It's wild. They're really already taking cuts already. So it wouldn't be a huge cut if they did just 400, 500.
Where did you hear that the games are going to be that price?
Well, not that the games are supposed to be that price, going to happen soon, but with how much money is invested into making these games, they should be $70 or $80. You know what I mean? with how much they
if
print.
we look back to the 90s,
It's been $60 just too
I mean-
long. We've had $60 games for what, 15 years, 20 years now? $60 games?
Nah, bro. If you look at NES games, those things were $80 back then before
Well,
inflation.
Well, yeah, but that's
Yeah.
specific stuff like Chrono Trigger and a few other things here
N64 too,
and there.
though. I remember paying like $80 for an N64 game. I had to like beg mother for that one.
I don't see
They were
I don't see
$30.
game prices going up because I don't see the cost of the media going up. Because if we're talking about
Mario
Blu-ray
64
discs, if we're talking about
$30.
4K Ultra disc, like this stuff is
Cheap.
like already out there. You know what I mean? It's not like the
Yeah.
technology that they're using is like some kind of Switch proprietary cartridge where you have to pay for this, one company to produce as many cartridges as possible for your game. You know what I mean? I don't know. I don't see games increasing in price. If anything, they'll stay the way they are, in my opinion.
But going back to the SSD, in the presentation, Mark Cerny basically said the SSD in the PS5 doesn't exist today. And they also said that you will be able to expand your storage, but the PlayStation is going to do a system check of the storage that you add to it. So if you went and bought an M2 SATA drive or whatever it is right now, if you went and bought an M2 NVMe drive right now, and you were to put that in tomorrow's PS5, there's a chance that your $200 investment, $100 investment today won't work. He's saying that, yes, you will be able to buy a third-party SSD in the future, but they need to exist first. And how much are those things going to cost? Because I remember when SSDs first started to roll out, or at least larger ones with higher speeds, a 512, a 200 and whatever gigabyte SSD was like $200-$300. So there's a chance that the next drive that doesn't exist yet, we could be spending $200 to expand our storage by 512 gigabytes. Now, I don't know if that would be the reality. It might be a little bit dramatic, but the fact that it doesn't exist is a little bit scary from at least a cost perspective for the mass market, because the reality too is, you got Mama Gina over there looking to go buy Snot Billy his expanded drive because he has
My mom's name.
He has he has Fortnite,
I don't like that.
Fortnite 2022 that he can't fit with all the 90 updates it's gone through, and she's gonna walk into Walmart or Best Buy and just buy any SSD. I can walk in today and it's going to take me a good 10 minutes to figure out what SSD I want to expand mine to, because I need to know what year did it release? What's the data limit? Am I going to protect my investment for tomorrow? These are all the same questions you're going to have for expanding storage on your brand new spanking PS5 that your everyday consumer is not going to be able to answer. Now, although the other side, which we'll talk about in a little bit, on Xbox is doing a whole nother thing, at least it's dumbed down to where your average consumer can freaking understand it.
You're talking about the pluggable hard drive memory card looking things?
Yeah, so with that too, let's transition so that way we can talk about both systems. So Xbox Series X. So this is everything that we know so far about the Xbox Series X. I'm going to spout out a little bit of some technical specs as well, guys. So bear with me. I'll try to be a little bit more exciting than Mr. Cerny. But the Xbox Series X is going to come out with a 8-core Zen 2, 8 Zen 2 cores at 3.8 gigahertz. It's going to have 12 teraflops at 52 CUs at 1.825 gigahertz. It's going to come out with the same 16 gigabytes of GDDR6 RAM, 1 terabyte of SSD. It's going to have a 4K UHD optical Blu-ray drive, just like the PS5, up to 120 frames per second support, potential 8K resolutions, ray tracing, variable ray shading, all this other stuff too. Now, here's the kicker. The console works with expansion cards up to 1 terabyte, and these cards slot into the back. It does say here, however, players could run into a big issue with the storage cards if the Xbox Series X becomes incredibly popular. There was a video where Microsoft showed off shortened load times enabled by the Xbox Series X's standard solid-state storage, which is a 1 terabyte NVMe SSD. According to Microsoft, the side-by-side, and I'm just kind of going into what the SSD means, a side-by-side load of State of Decay 2 illustrates that on Xbox One X, it currently takes about 52 seconds to load into that open world. On the Xbox Series X, with what they have, the load time is slashed to about 10 seconds. So And there's some stuff about the controller, which I'll touch on in a little bit here as well. But that's kind of the stuff on the Xbox Series X is they have a proprietary memory card or SSD that I'm calling a memory card that slots it to the back. They're partnered with Seagate, the company that I'm sure you're familiar with if you've ever bought a hard drive. And they're going to just have those on the market. No cost. We don't know what the heck it's going to cost yet, but it's going to be 1 terabyte. And, Mama Susie can just go and pick it up on the shelf for her kids and not ask questions when it comes to expanding storage. And what's cool about those, too, is you can just unplug it and plug it back into your other Series X if you have multiple, or take it to your friend's house. And with the PS5, again, we don't know what the heck it's going to look like. That may not be the same case if you're trying to literally take an NVMe SSD drive. Have you ever seen it? Basically looks like RAM. Trying to take that out and install that into your secondary or your friend's PS5, that's probably not going to happen. So
yeah,
thoughts?
probably not.
They're floored.
I love it. I love this whole memory card going back in the day.
Yeah, it's like going back in time.
When it comes to memory, I don't like to the proprietary stuff, because then that's when we start getting into these things like the Vita memory cards, for example. Super expensive for absolutely zero reason. Obviously they've grown in price now just because the Vita's discontinued and things like that. But even when the Vita came out, like I think to get a 64 gig cart at the time, it was like 130 or 100. It was over $100 to get a 64 gig cart, just for this handheld. You know what I mean? Like, I cannot stand when I can't get something at a cost-effective price that I can still use any way that I get, they need to have their hands in everything, but it's getting to the point where, I feel like it's ruining more experiences with gaming than it's helping. Don't everybody fucking talk.
Right?
I was just like,
you were complaining, asking if this is a podcast before, so now
I was sitting here. and I was like, what? I was like,
Josh, where are you
disagree.
Here's the thing about these removable, basically SSD expansions, or even the one that's built into the PS5. I'm excited about the prospect of the speed. I'm not excited at the prospect of proprietary connections, especially when we have USB 3.0 connections available. Even though I know that it would not match the speed, and I know you're gonna be able to use it for last gen titles on both systems. But the other thing that concerns me is I also see a very potentially expensive failure point. And that's concerning to me. At least Microsoft has removable ones. I'm not sure what the PlayStation 5's approach to that is. I can't remember. Am I excited for it? Yes, but again, SSD storage is still pretty expensive. Like, the cheapest I saw recently was Best Buy on a sale on an external drive, which I'm always interested in, for a 2 terabyte drive, but it was still $280, which is insanely expensive for how much it costs to get conventional storage. Now, naturally, you're not going to get the speed advantage that's going to make all these wondrous, like, game moments possible that Cerny was talking about yesterday. But I'm hoping that there's a middle ground there, either that to purchase expansion isn't going to be overly expensive, or God forbid repairs. Not going to be overly expensive, or if it is going to be very expensive, that these things are going to be built to last, and this isn't like a planned obsolescence sort of situation where they're going to be like, oh yeah, we'll put it in, but we'll make some bank on extra down the line because it's either going to run out of space or the thing's going to burn out within 2 years, right? That's concerning. I think SSD, because that's the thing, SSDs, I believe, have a limited number of reads and writes that can happen to them, which is a little bit different than a conventional hard drive.
They begin diminishing over time.
Yeah, because it's basically constantly flashing and reading the whole thing all at once. I think is how that works. I'd have to double check the tech on that, but that's my only big concern. Like, I think it's kind of cool that we're going back to a memory card type format, but at the same time, if you plug this thing into your Xbox to provide storage expansion that's going to be fast enough to support these modern games that are coming out, I don't think it's a thing where you're going to be like, oh, just let me pop this out and throw it in my pocket, I'll take it over to my buddy's house. I don't think it's going to work that way. It's not going to be like it's not going to be like whenever I used to make like custom Tenchu levels in high school and card, a PS1 memory card over to my buddy's house or something. I'm cautiously optimistic.
You know what?
Cautiously.
My biggest freaking annoyance with this narrative that both of them are having is okay, see if you guys agree with me. Tomorrow when this comes out, we flash forward to next year, this same time, we're having the same conversation. I feel fully confident that the next gen graphic cards that come out by Nvidia and AMD are still going to heavily surpass these consoles. And I'm going to be able to have a better looking game run off my old mechanical hard drive over there, and it's going to look better. Now, is it going to take a second to load? Absolutely, but it's going to look better. So what annoys me is them saying you can plug in any hard drive. It could be 3.2 USB, but your games ain't going to work if they're the new gen. You can only use the old, and that annoys me because these are just PCs. If I plug in an external SSD to my computer that's 3.2 USB, my game's going to be very snappy, and I'm going to be able to have it look tremendously better than today's games. I'm going to be able to run that ultra textures, and it's going to be able to load fast. So the fact that I think they need to do something, and it's all software based, right? They could choose to do A or B. They need to figure that out, because that's an extreme annoyance to me, because then I'm just like, well, I have a strong PC. I will continue having one because of the things I need it for. So tomorrow, why get the Xbox Series X? Well, convenience, but why choose to play something there when I can technically run Gears 6 and it's going to look better on my PC still tomorrow? Now, it's going to take an additional 10 seconds to load, but in my reality, I'm like, whatever. You know, I think they need to kind of figure out that narrative too, because it's going to suck having to spend a lot of money on these proprietary things. As a consumer, especially when they're giving you 825 gigabytes on the PS5 and only 1 terabyte on the Xbox. I don't know about you guys, but both of my hard drives, I constantly have to go in and manage my software and move them around. And I have an external hard drive on my Xbox, on my PS5, and I have a 2 terabyte hard drive in my Xbox, and I still have to go through and filter out. It's gonna suck.
That's just what I think this is. Like, I have I think a 2 terabyte external for my Xbox One.
Yeah.
And I think this is just kind of moving forward in technology where they're just taking larger storage devices and make them more compact. Because my external, I think it's a Seagate. It's a block. And then they're compacting the same amount of storage into a tiny little memory card, which is, what the advancements in technology have been, is taking things that were once large and taking them and making them smaller. You look at cell phones and everything like that used to be entire briefcases, and now they're, you can fit them in your pocket, real fancy. So I think it's just the evolution of technology where they're making everything more efficient. I don't think there's really a lot to it other than it's something that you'll need most likely as each game. If you look at the PS4 Pro, I downloaded Warzone, which was 100 gigabytes, and then I downloaded the Final Fantasy VII demo, and I had to clear space. And then you buy a game and you have to download 60, 70 gigabytes. So the amount of space needed for games on disk is ridiculous. It's more than it's ever been before. The only console that saves you from that really is the Nintendo Switch, where you can buy a game physical and only use up kilobytes of your memory. But the big boy consoles, you're using 50, 60 gigabytes for a physical game. So there's not a way of getting away from the fact that you're going to spend $400 or $500 on the console, and then another $100 to $200 on just memory for games that you spend $60 on. So it's just, you're constantly spending money. Playing video games is not an inexpensive hobby. If you want that, pick up fishing. It's a hobby that you have to. You have to. It's an escape from realities, because most of us have, we have jobs that we dedicate most of our free time to.
Or just crappy lives. Crappy lives is a better way of explaining it.
I had a fiance at one time that acted like I used video games to escape reality of our relationship and stuff like that, which is not true. I just like RPGs.
I'm more so shocked you had a fiance more than you escaping reality of video games.
I'm a fucking catch.
with that flow you got going on.
Yes.
We actually have similar flows going on. I think you're copying me now, man. You got your hair short. It's growing out. It's looking like it's my hair. I don't know, man. Trying to copy me?
I've been rocking this.
You're like 80% V-stips right now. You're not all the way there. Got to grow the beard out a bit.
Okay, I'm twice the man you'll ever be. Anyway, but yeah, it's just I forgot what I was talking.
Yeah,
God damn it, VC.
I always seem to do that too.
I got where you're coming from. But so here's the thing, though, man, is like us here, like what we do as we are gamers and stuff like that, and this is our hobby that we choose to divulge time into, is the reality is we can work and purchase these things and save up, or we could just straight up just buy it if we want to, depending on what our situations are. But if you flash forward 20 years ago and your situation was you're 11, right, and you also want the newest console, you would also like to play the newest game, whatever insert new game is here. I think of that demographic and what the narrative is to them, because the reality is, kids play games. They enjoy playing games. It's not just an escape. It's something that they just enjoy doing after school. It's now a social escape too, right? Because a lot of times, kids, maybe they can't go over to whomever's house, but now they can just chat on voice chat. So there's a ton of different things out there as well. And as companies they push people, as they should, they push people to the next generation of hardware. When that barrier to entry is so expensive, they're limited to memory, although they want people to move digitally, but you could probably only hold 3 games on your brand new shiny system. There's just a lot of things that I feel like is just hard to swallow. Again, not from necessarily this demographic, maybe you guys even watching at home, but to the everyday consumer and the everyday family who wants to purchase a new console for their home or their kids or their husband or their wife, or it's just their Call of Duty machine and they just want to continue playing the next Call of Duty or the next Madden, right? There's that whole demographic, which is much larger than us. We're like a baby percentage of the actual video game demographic.
Absolutely. With the baby.
Right.
Yeah.
I have a specific example of that. I have a coworker that has I convinced her to buy she has a 12-year-old son. I convinced her to buy him a Nintendo Switch Lite and Zelda Breath of the Wild for Christmas, just because that's what was the most inexpensive option. And she had to buy 2 Switch Lites for him and his sister. He plays the PS4. He has been complaining with news of the PS5. He has been complaining of his PS4 making strange noises.
It sure does.
So, I mean, I'm sure come Christmas time, he's going to be harking for that PS4 or the PS5. And it's, for someone that has 3 kids and works full time and pays a mortgage and everything like that, shelling out that much money for a console and then on top of it, memory and games, it's a lot. It's a lot to ask of someone. We are kind of separate from that branch of people where it's something that we specifically want, so we are more inclined to set aside money and everything like that. But my coworker doesn't know the difference between a PS4 and an Xbox other than the name.
I mean,
so she just kind of looks at it as, oh, this costs $500 or this costs $400. How am I going to pay for that? Where we kind of are, even now, I'm sure some of us are like, okay, it comes out holiday, I'm going to set aside $20 per paycheck. I'm going to set aside this for that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to be ready for the time when I can go into GameStop or go into Best Buy and purchase my new console. People aren't preparing like that.
No.
So it's
Especially
kind of
now.
yeah, it's kind of especially now when people are more focused on toilet paper. Shout outs,
$100 a roll.
shout outs to
The
the
one-
people that stole the toilet paper.
The one thing that I
Let's
notice a
go.
lot, especially from experience, is we're all adults. So because we're in this industry, no, there's 2 points to my thing. So because we're in this type of industry, we know what we're looking for. So if we walk into Best Buy, we walk into GameStop, we're gonna tell them exactly what we want, no questions asked. They're like, oh, okay, you're in here with the mission. You guys want your Xbox? Cool, awesome. The problem is with families with children. Just like your coworker, my example would be my sister. She relies on her kids to tell her, well, what game is it that you want? What console is it that you're looking for? What console is it supposed to be on, right? Because she could make the easy mistake of going to GameStop or Best Buy and buying the game on the wrong console, not knowing, wait, do they have an Xbox? No, I think it's a PlayStation, and getting the wrong thing, right? And then she's constantly coming to me. He's like, okay, is this a good game? Should I get this for them? I'm thinking of doing this. Like, she's always asking for my opinion because, again, we're part of this industry, but a lot of families don't have that luxury. And so this is why I'm saying these consoles are not going to be able to be listed more than $499 come launch because it just takes a ton of families out of the market. It's not going to be suitable or affordable for them. And yeah, if they do have a console already, or if it's their first purchase, they're going to be going towards the older generations. They're going to be like, you know what? Sure, this just came out, but they can settle on the Xbox X. They don't need an Xbox Series X. Like, the kids aren't going to notice a difference. And yeah, everybody's going to be, like, the kids or the person who's asking for it is going to be disappointed. But if they're not the adult making that purchase, it's just something that they're going to have to live with. And it's going to suck come launch, because if it's listed more than the $499, I mean, honestly, at that point, I don't even know if I'm gonna have to try to convince this guy. It's like, you know what? It's time to wait for it.
He's fucking getting it.
So I'm not okay spending more than $500 on it. I'm not.
When it comes to games, do you think that game companies look at appealing to adults more, or do you think that they appeal to children more?
Children.
Like, do you feel all right? So, with that being said, if just like the scenario that you just laid out happened, little Timmy, as Dom likes to say, asks for Xbox Series X, but his parents come home with Xbox One X. Okay, little Timmy doesn't have a job to, go buy his own Series X. Okay,
Right.
we're gonna say little Timmy's 12 years old. All right, little Timmy's a Fortnite pro. Okay,
I guess he'd be making money then if he's a Fortnite pro.
So if we're trying to get kids, which will be the ones that will eventually be your long-term customers, because let's be real, when it comes to the gaming industry, like, if you're not appealing to kids in some way, you're not thinking about your future, because guess what? We're all gonna die, eventually.
What?
We're gonna get old. We're gonna get this. Just
this is news to me. Thought I was
it's gonna happen, boy.
Oh, it's definitely gonna happen, especially really soon.
Oh God, I need to write a will. I'm leaving everything to my dog.
Let Rax talk.
That's cool.
I want to hear his opinion.
I love Rax. Rax, please
so the point that I'm trying to make is, say little Timmy gets a bad taste in his mouth, doesn't touch his Xbox One X, and goes, man, F video games.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
That's possible.
Pretty much, all right, well, this kid is like, whatever. I'm going to go get into sports now because the friends that I have are making fun of me for not having the most up-to-date whatever.
Yeah.
I'm going to go learn
to play basketball or soccer.
It is what it is, which is not a bad thing. It's not like, you know what I mean? But, when it comes to appealing to children and, that age range where they're in that adolescent group, I guess, where kids talk to each other. Like, the social media has made it even crazier.
yeah.
So when
Absolutely.
we were
Oh
in
yeah,
high
oh yeah.
school,
Kids nowadays
it
are so
was already
screwed
like
up
that.
because of it. Like, it's insane.
I'll let you guys finish.
Who's talking?
You go do your thing. How are you, Dom?
Fantastic. I'm great. I'm preparing my wallet for the new systems.
Yeah,
Staring
man, I
at
can't wait
Animal
till these new
Crossing.
consoles come out.
Some of those indie games are on that
Animal
list.
Crossing.
Just Animal Crossing.
So what happened with Timmy?
I'm just saying, if kids get a bad, like, say for example, if they can't get this stuff simplified, if they can't make it to a decent price point and things like that, maybe their demographic is only going to be older stuff. Maybe we are going to see an increase in mature rated games. Maybe we are going to see less things like that. Maybe we're going to see these companies like Nintendo dominate the market of like a younger audience and things of that nature, as where PS5, Xbox Series X is going to try to appeal to the more mature gamer, which, mature gamer is going to have the money. That's right. And I just don't see how they're incorporating the quote unquote family aspect of it, like Cynthia was mentioning, is all I'm really trying to say. I feel like this
Right.
is something that appeals to a hardcore gamer, someone a little bit more familiar with PC knowledge and things of that nature.
Yeah, no, I agree. The other thing I think about too, man, is like the other narrative. Hey, $5 dono, D-Nick55. He said Rax is great. Said glad he's back. Yo, Rax love in the chat. But no, I'm like, I completely agree. I think one of the things I worry about too with the new launch of a console, right, is let's say they're $600 boxes. They come out at $600, and I feel like a part of the narrative is still gonna be like whatever game comes out today will be on PS4 and PS5. It'll be on Xbox One X and Xbox Series X. I feel like the incentive to buy the new box, unless you're super hardcore, isn't there either. So I think that's gonna be interesting at the launch of these systems. Is like, are they really gonna give us something that is like only playable on one of these two consoles, or will they continue to be you could play them anywhere? And then what? And then my secondary thought is, well, if that's the case, well, what's their goal? Because then that they're out of the gate, their systems won't be really like, they really won't be leaving the shelves. And as you're talking, as you're giving your scenario too, I just keep thinking about the Nintendo Switch and how much more popular this little machine is gonna get.
Yeah.
Because if you own a Nintendo Switch, arguably you probably own the best console on the market right now for video games, which is just crazy because really, you can play, you could play the new Doom. Not today, but soon. You can
Same with the Outer Worlds soon.
You can play Outer Worlds
Right.
soon. So you can play these big box games. You can play the Nintendo. So I'm just thinking about, man, how good of a position is Nintendo in saying, what's the teraflop? Here's Animal Crossing. You know what I mean? Like they could care less. That's kind of what I was thinking as you were kind of giving those scenarios. Is like, yo, Timmy, just get the Switch. Don't worry about the Series X. You'll be much happier with the Switch, and your friends will play Fortnite on there too, buddy. Don't worry. So I think that's kind of an interesting thing. You're just thinking about how well positioned Nintendo is amongst all of this news.
I think Nintendo's well positioned now, and I think that Microsoft's going to be the best position in the next generation. Because ultimately, the one who's going to win out isn't even going to be necessarily. It's definitely not going to be the most powerful system. I don't even think it's going to be necessarily the system that has the best games. And I know that sounds really weird to say, since historically I've been very much on of the opinion that whoever has the most games tends to win out. But
Yeah.
who's going to win will be who can best adapt to consumer behavior. Switch kills it right now for that very reason. A lot of people who. Yeah, well, a lot of people right now love their Switch just because, it's so flexible and it fits into their lifestyle, whether they want to play Fortnite or whether they want to play the latest AAA directly from Nintendo, right? Like a Breath of the Wild type situation. But Microsoft, because they're thinking about consumer behavior and how it's going to extend beyond the box with Project xCloud, Because that's one of the things that they said. Like, you notice whenever they showed the new Xbox controller, they didn't deviate very much. They made some ergonomic rounded modifications to the shoulder button area to make that a little more comfortable to hold. And the only other major thing that they added that they really kind of took from PlayStation was a dedicated share button, which I think is really smart. But one of the things that they point out was that they didn't take a thing that was already working and try to reinvent the wheel with it, right? They knew that the proprietary wireless communication that they have built into that controller works very well, and they focused on making sure that it remained familiar this generation. I think that was by design, not just because it's easy to sort of move from one platform to the next, but also they know that a lot of people will turn to an Xbox One controller as the best controller, period, to pair with other devices that have nothing, right? That have nothing to do with like the Xbox or even PC, right? A lot of people will pair that with like an iPad, because the iPad right now, if you get an iPad Pro, it's basically the best mobile experience. It's the best mobile experience you could get for a game like Fortnite, because that 120 hertz refresh rate. There's just not another device at that price point that's portable and powerful enough to kind of do that. I think that's what Microsoft's goal is. Like, right now they're doing this big song and dance, very much focused on the hardware because that's what everybody expects them to do, and they kind of have to counter whatever Sony's going to drop. But ultimately, I think they're looking way more, long term at this whole situation, and they're continuing this mission of making Xbox this sort of ubiquitous sort of brand that sort of hops to whatever hardware is available. But they own the software, they own the customer, they own the subscription. Like, that's what they want.
Dude, you hit something that I'm very passionate about. I'm wearing an Xbox hat today. I flipped it back, but I want to see Xbox succeed. I love Xbox. I love video. I love all of them, right? There's for different reasons. But I want to see Xbox succeed because they are so consumer focused. They told me, so the new translucent purple controller just came out. And we were talking like, oh, do we get it? Do we not get it? And I was like, yeah, we have so many controllers, and the next system's going to be coming out this year. I don't want to waste more money on more controllers that I'm not going to be able to use next gen. And in the recent post, what they said was, don't worry, we are looking to decrease the latency with the new controllers, and they're doing a bunch of stuff to ensure that when you push a button, it's instantaneous on the new system, and they're doing that on a hardware level, which is nuts. But what they said was, don't worry, your existing Xbox controller will simply get an update and be able to do it too. And I said, well, goddamn it, I'm going to go get myself a translucent purple controller because I don't have to.
Do you have it?
No, not yet.
Not yet. Your boy gets paid tomorrow.
It's a pretty controller.
It's gorgeous, but that is super consumer focused, knowing that the immense amount of controllers I have, or, again, we're going back to the families. They have 2 controllers, 3 laying out around because the Xbox has existed since 2013. That's just going to be able to go forward and just work on the next console. Like, as a consumer, knowing that I don't have to buy another controller, that's super consumer focused. What they're doing with Game Pass, right? Every game that works on Game Pass will work on the Xbox Series X. Anything you can put on the Xbox One today, you can put on the Xbox One, the Series X tomorrow. And they're gonna benefit from that because they're gonna have faux HDR. Did you guys hear about that? That they're basically grabbing the HDR that exists on Gears 5 and they're replicating that on games that don't have that software. So tomorrow you're gonna be able to play Halo 5, which we've been partaking in recently, in HDR without Bungie needing to do anything on their game, just from a hardware level, hardware forced HDR. So I just think that they're setting themselves up for a really good future. The only thing that sucks is you're still gonna have to use AA's, and that does piss me off a little bit.
I do wish PS5 would let you use your PS4 controllers for the PS5, because I got some bomb ass PS4 controllers.
Yeah,
and I would very much like to use them. I got this one, and then I've got the Spider-Man special edition red and white one that I would very much like to continue to use instead of going to the basic bitch black.
I don't think we for sure know if that won't be a possibility, but if we look at Sony's past, I doubt it. Some part of me doubts it.
Now, Xbox, I've never bought, well, that's not true. I bought a pink shadow controller for an X once. Other than that, I've used this this blue one for everything. The entire Xbox One life for the most part.
Yeah.
It's a nice controller. I'm not particularly attached to it. I wish, if I had the wherewithal to go onto the Xbox website and design my own controller, I definitely would. And I'd make one that looks way better than Rax's because, oh, pish posh, pish posh. But I don't know. I mean, I like the Xbox has so many more designs for the controllers, but I find myself drawn to the PS4. Special editions, everything like that. So controllers, they don't make or break a console, but I would like to use my PS4 controllers on the PS5.
Me too.
Yeah. Like the 20 that we have.
Yeah.
What do you do with them? Like, what do you do with them after the fact?
I literally have like 8 of them on my bedpost just lined up behind me, and I have a strong stance of not charging them so I can get through a use of at least one of each of them.
Yeah.
And then I charge
Did you
them
get
and
the
they all
purple?
die. Yeah.
Did you get the purple?
Yeah, I did get that.
Do you like the Phantom Magenta or the Electric Purple? Which one do you like more? Like the PS4 purple or the Xbox
PS4
new
purple.
C?
Yeah, I'm an atomic purple kind of guy. I picked the GBA solid purple color. I didn't pick the translucent one. That's just what I preferred. I like that deep purple. But the Xbox one.
There was a
too.
GBA. There was a see-through GBA purple.
Yeah,
I had that
it was like
one.
a glacier though. It wasn't like I like
Yeah,
that deep.
it wasn't purple. It was like you said, glacier purple. It was like that because of the translucency.
Yeah.
Fun story. Do you want to know how I got my Game Boy Advance? I got a pink see-through Game Boy Advance through trading a gentleman on the bus for Furbies that did not belong to me. They belonged to my mother, and she didn't use them. So I said, you know what? I'm taking these. I'm trading this kid Game Boy Advance because, damn it, I want to play Pokemon Sapphire.
Well, time out. I'm just surprised he accepted Furbies to give away a Game Boy Advance and Pokemon Sapphire. I would have thought that kid was on crack.
He had a Game Boy Advance SP at the time.
Ooh, nice.
I was behind the times. I was not. My family did not believe in advocating funds to to my gaming addiction.
To essential stuff like GameStop.
Well,
you got it, Josh. That's
it
crazy though that they're open during this whole thing though. That's wild.
They were open during that whole thing. I used to have to drive during this time. I lived in Nevada, and I had to drive to Carson City.
GameStop is open doors? Well, guess what? GameStop claims it's an essential retail service. GameStop is arguing it sells essential products and should remain open in the face of the government when they order to close businesses like retail stores, restaurants, and bars in the face of a novel C virus pandemic. According to an email sent to employees on Thursday, that's today. According to 3 sources, the company sent out a massive email to managers today saying, we believe, quote, that GameStop is classified as an essential retail and therefore it is able to remain open at this time, close quote. The message from GameStop argues that the retailer carries goods that, quote, enable and enhance our customers' experience in working from home. We have received reports of our local authorities visiting stores in attempts to enforce closure despite our classification. The message says store managers are instructed to give the letter to law enforcement agents who make inquiries. The document states, the letter that they'll be giving to them, thank you for what you are doing to keep us all safe. If you have questions about our store hours and operations or policies, we ask that you contact our corporate office. This came from an article in Polygon, and Polygon called the number listed in the letter, which goes to a voicemail. Very nice. For the company purported C virus inquiries response. We left a message but haven't heard a response yet. So the coppers can get the GameStop voicemail. Basically a big FU. Enjoy that. Thoughts?
So in Pennsylvania, get this, I believe governor over there has threatened to take legal action for any businesses that are technically non-essential. GameStop can claim that they're non-essential all they want to, but when it comes down to it, if they have someone come in there and tell them that they need to shut down, they need to shut down. GameStop's not above the law. GameStop's not above human rights, and GameStop is going to have something done to them. It's only a matter of days. I think that they just want to get this damn Animal Crossing and Doom thing over with and come up with some sort of alternative here, because just as this morning, I had one, and I've got connections with people inside GameStop that are giving me information. Got plenty of people that I deal with that we have close ties with GameStop just because of the company that I work for.
Yeah.
We try to keep in contact just to kind of stay in tune with each other, and making sure we're not doing anything that's going to either cause problems at their store, and they're not going to cause problems at our store. So with that being said, I think that what's going to end up happening is that they're going to make it through this launch. I think that they're going to come up with some sort of plan to, cut back hours drastically, maybe even open up on days where games are launching, maybe stay open for 2 or 3 days just so people can come grab their game and get out, and then wait for the next launch, because they are not taking trades anymore. I don't know if you guys saw that letter, but earlier, before the podcast started, another press release was let out. I think it's on GameStop's Twitter now, but I knew about this earlier. So they're not to be taking trades at all until further notice. It's only a matter of time before they go, hey, and do the whole PR spin, like we think that it's best for our employees, da 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 da. Okay. On the other side, I don't think their employees, are thinking about the longevity of their job, which it doesn't matter really, because the job, at the end of the day, if they end up closing, their job might not be there when they come back anyway. And that's not because of anything to do with GameStop will fire them. It's just there might not be a GameStop to come back to. Because if you guys think about it, when people go on strike, when people go on these things where they're standing up against these corporations that are doing inhumane things to their employees or going against human rights or anything of that nature, these strikes and these things, if they can shut down the business for one single day, okay, you go and look at anything in terms of striking, okay, and think of that mentality and apply it to what's going on here. Okay, we're not technically in a situation where people are upset that they want to go on strike. They just want to protect themselves, their health, and their families, which is understandable. But at the same time, a lot of businesses are going to take a big hit, and these companies are stuck in a very a rock and a hard place. Okay, because you could do the right thing and send your employees home, but at the end of the day, how are they going to pay them? The money still has to come in. It's not like money just fucking appears out of thin air. And GameStop was already struggling as it is. So not for anything, this is just going to end up resulting in even more store closures. It's going to end up resulting in even more bad things happening to GameStop. And at the end of the day, GameStop, as shitty as they can be, I don't want to see GameStop go away. I want to see GameStop transform into a place that people want to go again. I think that they need to get their business model in check. I think that they need to figure out whatever they need to figure out, and they've been, grasping at straws for years now. I don't know if I'm too confident in what they can possibly achieve at this point, because I feel like the GameStop name is synonymous with sucks. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like when people hear GameStop, it automatically goes to a negative place. So they need a complete rebranding. Okay. Like, I think that GameStop, the name, needs to go away. If anything, they need to, figure out some kind of way to maybe, appoint someone else who is more in tune with the gaming industry.
Reggie
could be a possible thing. But I will say this right now: not even Reggie's got me looking at GameStop in a positive right now. You know, I'm looking at some of my friends that are forced to go to work, and yeah, they are being told you still have to show up. But like I said before, it's, you know, it's one thing. It's one thing to be precautious and do everything that you can to prevent things happening at a store level. But, okay, and I'll tell you this from experience because I've been dealing with this in my location as well. And like I said before, I do not work for GameStop. I just work for another gaming company. We have people that come in, they're not taking the shit serious at all. Okay, like when we come in, all right, when you come in, we have had policies in place, and my company can't shut down either because, in all honesty, and I have no call over that. If it was up to me, we'd close our doors. Okay, but at the end of the day, like I said, employees still got to get paid. You know, because my bills are still going to come. I'm not getting any, you know, extension on my bills. Nobody's announced anything in terms of what bills that I personally have. Now, some people may be getting what's the word I'm looking for here?
Stimulus checks.
Yeah, something along those lines where they get, you know, get a jail free card. You know, the thing is that, you know, I think a lot of people are in the I'm scared mode, and you know, we need to get into how do we solve this problem mode, okay? Because if we all practice the 5 things to help prevent the coronavirus, it is helping, but it's not doing as much as we possibly could. So when I have people come into my store lately, we have 2 signs up on the door that says, "Hey, you know, these are the policies that we have set in place. These are the things that if you do not respect being inside the store, you will be asked to leave." And it's very serious. You know what I mean? But the people that come into my store, they think that it's a big joke. Okay. And listen, I am all for people not living in fear. I don't think that you should live in fear. I think that you should live in some sort of capacity where you have the smarts about you to understand the severity of the situation, and that it's not about you being scared about getting the virus. It's about you contracting it, not knowing that you have it, bring it home to your mom, your dad, your whoever it is that's older, and then you end up being the reason why they died because you wanted to be Mr. I ain't afraid of no ghost. All right. So, you know, it is what it is at the end of the day. This stuff is going to happen. And unfortunately, this is a very tragic situation that we're in because people are looking at it like, oh, well, only 8,000 people have died. There's billions of people in the world. Yeah, that number is small in comparison to billions. But when you look at it for, like, so for example, Italy, for example, their death toll rose 400 plus people in a matter of a single day. Okay. Yes, granted, the population of Italy is, you know, it has a high rate of older, you know, citizens in their country, but at the same time, the same stuff that I'm just talking about earlier, where people are not taking it serious and whatever. I know you guys have seen those videos where it's like, oh, people in Italy are outside singing with each other.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like,
balconies,
like, okay, you're out there. These damn germs fucking fly through the air. You're all singing at each other. Like, go back inside. You know what I mean? Like, the isolation thing is what?
If I must interject, I also saw a video of a gentleman. I think he was in his late 40s. He was trapped in his apartment with his sister for, I think, 2 days. His sister passed away from the virus, and he could not get assistance from the you know, normal people that would come and pick up a body. You know,
in Italy, they've literally been told to stop treating the elderly. That's how fucking, like, they have been told to stop treating the elderly. Think about that. Think about taking your grandmother or your mother or whoever to the hospital, and they go, sorry, we've got instructions to not
that's crazy,
to treat this because we have to treat these young healthy people.
They're taking a real natural selection view, which is something that if they feel as though they can only advocate so many resources to the appropriate people, that's their initiative as a country. Because I believe their death rate rose to 8% or something like that. Majority of them are the elderly, because, like you said, if they're not treating them, then obviously they're not going to recover. Not as if they have a antidote for the virus anyway. All they can do is really, give fluids and everything like that, and try experimental, experimental stuff on them. But it is a crazy situation.
And
As for the whole,
those things too is just because of people not taking the appropriate precautions, because it gets passed on from other people not doing it, and then it gets passed on to those who can't.
Okay, so let me tell you something. I've had a fever and a sore throat for the last 4 days. I work for the government. I work for the state. I have been instructed to stay home, stay away from people. They have been using my vacation time, which is not terribly a big deal.
That's a big deal.
I mean, it is, but I get them. I get them.
This ain't a vacation.
Yeah, I know.
You ain't in the Bahamas.
I've been staying in my house with my dog.
That doesn't sound like the Bahamas.
No. I was going to use that vacation time to go up and visit your player too. But obviously, with the times we're living in, who knows with interstate travel what's going to happen.
I have a feeling they're going to end up stopping it.
I think so too.
Like, everybody's on spring break in Miami. Like, that's already ridiculous.
They already canceled a lot of that stuff down there in Florida
but it
already.
didn't stop everybody from going.
Yeah, they're still going there, just hanging out though. Like,
yeah,
there's cases. So I work with the public exclusively. A lot of times they come from half an hour away. There is a lot of people that come from counties where there have been cases of the disease, and I'm not necessarily
comfortable.
Yeah, I make them sit pretty far away from me. I clean my desk. I clean everything periodically throughout the day.
Yeah.
My manager, wipes down all of the doors and all of.
Hold on one second. V-Sips has to go, so let him.
Yeah, I actually have to get going. I tried saying something 10 minutes ago, but
sorry, buddy.
Oh,
yeah,
it's
absolutely.
all right. It's all good. You I was letting you guys speak. You were doing your thing. But
I didn't scroll down in the group chat. Go ahead and give your outro, and we'll link your
sorry,
channel in the
I
chat.
have to get going. Something already planned beforehand.
No worries, bro.
I do now.
Absolutely.
But thank you again for having me on tonight. We talked about a lot of great stuff, especially relating to the Xbox Series X and PS5. And I'm just going to mention about the Indie World Direct real quick. Baldo looks dope. Exit the Gungeon's dope. The rest of it's trash.
Baldo looks amazing.
Baldo looks incredible.
But
it has those
Ni
no Kuni vibes. Ni no Kuni. And the last Campfire looked kind of good. Like, if that was on sale, I'd pick that up. But Blue Fire looks like Ninja Bread Man. I'm just going to say that. All right. Thank you guys for having me be here, and I hope you all have a good night, everyone.
Have a good one.
Laters.
Peace. Later.
And if you guys want to find VCIPZ, make sure you guys hit the channel in the chat right now.
The link.
It's a whole thing. Check him out. I'll just close this up with my 2 cents on GameStop. While I don't think they're the best company in the world, I don't think they're the devil, as a lot of people do. But then again, I don't allow them to push me around on their pre-orders and their protection plans and everything like that. I go in there with a set ideal as to what I'm doing and everything like that. And while I think they should probably close down, I do think that not taking in trades is as good as they can do for their financial position. They can't really afford to lose out on sales, even though trades and reselling it at a higher price is their main initiative for making profit. In terms of selling games, they have an entire plethora of games that were traded in that they gave money for that they still need to sell. So they're going to try and sell them while this is going on, and at some point it's going to get so bad that they do close their doors. But while I don't exactly condone their actions, I do understand them. And, hopefully they do close them at some point, while giving some type of compensation to their employees, just based on maybe their average hours worked over the last 6 months or something like that, because obviously you're not going to pay them all, full time. A lot of them work 4 or 5 hours a week, Josh. Josh works at GameStop. He's worked 3 hours in the last 2 months.
I'm no longer employed with GameStop, just so we're clear.
Oh God. You got fired for negligence.
No, not negligence per se. Just there weren't a lot of shifts for me.
You just didn't
Couldn't
take
really
them?
squeeze in.
Yeah, well, I mean, they had like a few different seasonal people working there. But it's just the way my schedule worked out. I kind of told them from Jump Street, I already had a day job, so I was like, I have weekends and evenings, but a lot of those were taken up by other seasonal people. So, although they are fully intending to bring me back next year, so I'm looking forward to the discount. So,
There you go.
I mean,
Absolutely.
be good.
So I think just kind of like wrapping it up, I think that they could have decided to tackle this a little bit better. I understand that maybe they can't afford to close. I understand that their people maybe can't afford to close, but I think that a lot of other big box stores and other similar retailers are taking a stance to where they don't necessarily close, but they offer like a they only allow a certain amount of people in their stores, or they're doing creative things to today, right? Like with their release of Animal Crossing and Doom early, right? Like they could do things to where like they stand outside, they grab a receipt, you take it in. They could be creative, and then they could have kind of pushed that messaging out to the public of what their creativity is. Now again, I'm not the guy. I'm not a creative, marketing, management in that level aficionado. But they could have done a lot of different things, I think, and maybe they still will. But the fact that they put out this kind of message already, that is, I think it's just gonna hurt them even more in the long run, kind of to what Rax was alluding to, and it's just gonna kind of speed up their closure process, which sucks for a lot of people because, again, it's their livelihoods, and a lot of them, they depend on, it sucks, but they depend on GameStop to, support whatever they do, school, work, families, kids, themselves, whatever it is, right? So, hopefully, this is not all gloom and doom for them, but it's a really rough position to be in, and I can only imagine working there and having to stay positive about it. But anyways, the last topic of the night, and then we'll finish it off here, guys, is speaking about positivity. The Indie Direct, the Indie World Nintendo presentation happened, and I won't. I'll spare you guys the 22 games that decided to come to the Indie World Direct, and just kind of ask the panel here, for those who watched it, just kind of go over what's a couple of things you guys are excited about from the Indie Direct, and just what you guys thought about it.
I didn't watch it.
I will
Fair.
bounce off what VC said, and I
Yeah.
am excited for Baldo. I mean, I think it looks like a very fun, Cooney-esque RPG. I am an RPG man myself, and I think it looks very well done.
Vibes.
Yeah, I love the art style. I think it looked pretty great.
I agree.
As for that, there was a lot of games that were kind of forgettable for me personally. I didn't feel as though they really put a lot of, I don't want to say didn't put a lot of effort into the direct, but I didn't feel like there was that many bangers. I mean, I felt like it was kind of, I don't know, like a 6 out of 10 for me personally. I felt like it was a lot of forgettable games.
Yeah.
Not to downplay the effort it takes to make the games, just for me personally, I didn't see anything that really popped other than maybe was it the Campfire game and Baldo, and then Exit the Gungeon. If you're a fan of the series, that's fantastic. I know a lot of people that love Enter the Gungeon, and if you're able to get their sequel that leads exactly where it left off in the original game, that's fantastic. Maybe wait off on a physical if you're a collector, because Enter the Gungeon does have a physical release. Other than that, I mean, I'm just kind of playing my backlog. Not really looking forward to many of the games they also didn't give any concrete release dates. Most of them were summer 2020.
Yeah.
Yeah, they just gave windows. They literally didn't give a concrete release date of any game other than Exit the Gungeon, which came out same day. So, it is what it is.
So
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
No. I was just looking through some notes here. Continue, Josh. Apologies.
No, I was just gonna say I'm kind of with Jake on this. Like, I feel like there wasn't really like a singular like standout that really kind of blew me away. There are some games that I'm interested in from it for sure. I guess I was just expecting like some larger reveal. I feel like we've gotten better like indie showcases in the past. But I will tell you, my top 3 by far would be Summer and Mara, which it was the game I'd completely forgotten about. I know they had a Kickstarter for it some time back, and I remember seeing the trailer for it. And I thought it looked really, really colorful, really vibrant. I tend to be drawn to games like that. Also, Baldo, I think that looks incredible. And then the other one was The Last Campfire. It does look a little bit simplistic in its presentation, but I kind of like the song that they used for the trailer. And I think those were probably my top 3 from that presentation. Like, Exit the Gungeon looks fine. Like, I feel like I wrote off Enter the Gungeon way too quickly. Like, I downloaded it probably sometime last year, and I played it like once, and I was like, oh, this is garbage. I didn't like it. But then I went back to it and forced myself to stick with it a little bit longer. And then I started to really like it. It did kind of remind me a little bit of Binding of Isaac. Not quite as crude or over the top in its humor or anything but the gameplay is solid. It's there. And I'm glad that people who are, Gungeon fans are getting the follow-up.
So I'll kind of run you guys through some of my notes that I took down while I was watching the direct, or I don't want to say direct because it wasn't, but the presentation. So I went over here, and this was my amalgamation and kind of the presentation. I put the commentaries pretty lame, which I think we can all agree it was. It was pretty lame. I wrote down that Baldo RPG looks like Ni no Kuni. Thumbs up. I wrote down thumbs up. I didn't give a thumbs up. I put that it was the only game that looks cool so far, so obviously several of the 22 games passed. And then I wrote down Quantum League might be an interesting arena shooter. It's by people called Nimble Giant.
I saw that.
Looks meh, but nimble rhymes with nipple. I may buy it. I wrote down here, debt repayment RPG. What does that mean? Oh, it's a good life. Pass. You play as an animal. Cat/dog, pretty lame. I wrote down Hello Games. I went Sean Murray. I put it in quotations, LOL. Because, if you guys follow the game industry, Sean Murray, huh? But I put that they're making a new game, and I put, wow. I put The Last Campfire. Looks like a little adventure exploration style game. Has platforming and puzzle elements. Looks like an indie game. Sorry. I put Blair Witch is coming. Hopefully not twice. And then I wrote down Ghost of a Tale looks dope. It looks like Skyrim. So those are my notes from the indie presentation.
Those are very detailed and impressive notes. So I'm very proud of you.
They were
Thank
impressive.
you so much. I appreciate it. I forgot that I had taken them.
I know you wrote those down in pen, not pencil, right?
I'm sure you used a crayon.
In absolute.
I'm a more permanent style of a guy,
I like Baldo. Baldo looks
These crayons
good.
are scented.
They taste like cotton candy, and I like them.
Yeah, I
But
skipped
yes.
out on watching the. This week's been insane for me, but
You didn't miss much.
I agree. The Baldo game definitely does have like those Miyazaki. Does look the most interesting out of all of the ones that I've seen. Even though I didn't watch the presentation, I did go back and check out some of the games. I mean, we're definitely going to have presentations that are going to be a little bit lackluster compared to other things that have gotten us ultra excited. I think that when the when the Switch came out, they did such a good job of maintaining exciting directs for so long that people just come to expect it. And usually, when you have your expectations high, it leaves you for plenty of room to fall when they aren't met. So, I mean, we have what is it? It's March now. We have plenty of time before we get to the holiday season when we know that all of the heavy hitters is going to come out. This year is going to be weird in general, just because anytime you see a transition from like even 360 into Xbox One, PS3 into PS4, there is that lull where developers don't really want to release these super huge experiences because they know that in a few months' time, that console is going to get unplugged, especially if the console doesn't have backwards compatibility fully. You know what I'm saying? So sometimes developers will be like, okay, should we, try and push this back and just come out on the PS5? Should we do that? You know what I mean? I'm sure there's a lot of like backroom meetings and things going on that we will eventually hear about. I think that given the severity of the state of the nation and things of that nature, I think that gaming companies are probably hesitating to put out a lot of information because it will get buried by Corona anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's a tricky time. We're not only in a weird situation because of an outbreak, we're in a weird situation because of the transition stage of going from, this gen to next gen. And we have a ton of the conventions that we would normally get information from being canceled. So I'm sure that companies are overwhelmed with a ton of things going on their plate, because I'm sure all of these companies have employees that are going, hey, so are we not coming to work either? What's up with that? You know what I mean? So I think that on the surface, we're gamers. We're going to look at it as the surface. And the film on the surface right now is we're looking at games. We want games. We want information. We want this. We want that. But in reality, we need to kind of probably take a step back and really kind of recognize where we're at. Where's the important stuff going on right now? Let's get our lives in order and then get back to these kick-ass games. And then we'll talk about some exciting stuff once we start getting some good news. I think that a lot of things are a little bit messed up right now. So, give it a couple months. I think that we will start probably seeing some more exciting news, especially, I'm really excited to see what Nintendo will do when it comes time for these new consoles to come out. I'm not saying that they're going to be releasing their own console, but it's going to be exciting to see what they do to stay relevant when people are going to be talking about PS5 and Xbox One, because it is inevitable. People love new stuff. Whether it's Nintendo or not, Nintendo does have its diehards, but it also has, a couple of really powerful and exciting consoles coming out that it's got to compete with, even though they don't consider themselves in the same realm. You know what I'm getting at.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, with that being said, I think, times are changing. We're interested to see what games are coming, and we would like to know more, but the thing we want to know most about is people's safety at each of these publisher and developers. So we hope that that's the precaution that they take, because honestly, we can wait, and we will be here patiently waiting, playing our backlogs and games that are releasing right now, like Doom and Animal Crossing, which this is probably like a whole another year of gaming right here. Or for Cynthia, at least 2 days or so. So it's going to be a fun time.
I've been playing this entire time. I don't know what you're talking about.
Exactly. So this is going to be a fun time. Thank you, everybody, for joining LootCast episode 41. We're going to talk to our panel, see what they're up to, see what they are not up to, and what's coming on their channels, if anything. Mr. Jacob.
I like how you say that towards me. But no, I streamed Resident Evil 3 demo earlier tonight, and I might have pooped my pants. I haven't checked yet.
I watched him.
I did as well.
It was a lot of people. I played it twice. Not very many people showed up the first time. I suspect because no one got notifications, as I had not streamed in about 3 weeks. And YouTube says, "Nah, mother, I don't think so." And they don't send out notifications. But the rest of it was a lot of fun. And following this direct at about 1:25 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, I will be streaming New Horizons, which will be fun. So come on through if you are not subscribed to the channel. I'm one away from 180.
Woo.
Nice. 21 away from 200. I would probably be there if I was more consistent, but oh well. This is who I am as a person.
Speaking about people who are confident being themselves, Mr. Your Player 2, definitely confident in his own skin. What you got going on?
When you're a ginger, you have to be. It's not easy. It's a hard life, Dom. But recent thing that I did on my channel is I did do an unboxing of the Animal Crossing Switch. If you want to go check that out here. If you want to chat, Twitter's the best place to find me. You can find me there. I'll go ahead and drop a link. But yeah, as far as our things coming up on the channel, we'll be doing more live streams for sure. I have not yet rolled out the Hori Split Pad Pro review, which I did, and was really pretty surprising. I'll probably end up doing some stuff about the Oculus Quest also, but then also I tend to do a lot of like helpful tips and strategy stuff for content creators. Usually that's on Tuesdays. Fun stuff is usually on Thursdays, although I may be tweaking that formula a little bit in the coming months. Still rolling some things around, but yeah, that's what you will find on my channel. Yeah, it's going to be on another week. Appreciate it, Dom, as always.
Absolutely. Always a great time having you here. And, great times just continue to roll as they roll over to Rax the Great, because since he's come back, we've been having nothing but good times over here on the LootCast each week. Mr. Rax, I know you dropped a video this last week. Where can people find you, and what was it about?
So, the video that I did, I partnered with an awesome creator named Chronic Spartan. Really awesome dude. He is from Australia. I don't know if I did that accent properly, but
crikey. All right, now didn't get it.
He's a really genuinely sweet guy. Really smart, really good at editing. He did a fantastic job on his parts. We did a video talking about 6 songs to get you pumped up for Doom Eternal, and now that Doom Eternal has released, you can go get that Spotify playlist that we have put in the video as well. Just go down into the description. You can check that out. And if you follow me on Twitter, you can also see links to the video there. And if you guys enjoy Doom, you guys enjoy metal music, you guys, just overall fun and music and gaming and whatever, just come hang out with me because I'd appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, guys, thank you guys so much for joining LootCast episode 41. If you guys are listening on Apple, Spotify, or any other podcast service around the globe, well, we're not on them yet, but we are on Apple, iTunes, and Spotify, so make sure you guys follow. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, weird because you're here, so you should be. Make sure you guys like the video if you watch this on a replay, and come by and watch us stream all weekend. We stream 4 days a week at 8:30 Pacific time, and that is Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. You can catch us playing Luigi's Mansion 3 tomorrow as we try to get through our backlog, and then this weekend we'll be playing Doom Eternal on Sunday, so make sure you guys come by for that.